try to find other solutions, to think outside the box. And after this is all over, we're still going to be neighbors, so let's make sure that we have dialogue that goes along that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Our next speaker is C.J. Jackson.
Supervisors, tribal representatives, thank you once again. I'll echo what Mr. Porter said. Having been involved in this discussion, if you will, for several years, this has been the only opportunity I have felt for direct conversation on matters of significance on this. I would like to get some guidance, however, from both sides of the discussion with regard to how I can affect and suggest to the agenda. Over the last several of your meetings, I've talked about the implications associated with 25 CFR 151. The reason I keep bringing that up is once a property is in trust or goes forward, the implications change the very nature of that property and change the very nature of the property that surrounds it. These implications have a direct bearing on the cumulative impacts and the assessment of the future going forward for the property. In essence, what we've done is to compartmentalize this discussion, pull it away from the greater global concern of the issues that will essentially transpire or transform if this process goes forward. The other element was at the beginning of these talks, Chairman Armenta asked with a question, all right, what properties would not be favored for trust by the county? Somehow that dialogue after the question was asked disappeared. The reason you asked, or that I want you to ask that question, is because at a certain point, under the due diligence standards associated with an on-reservation acquisition, the discussion of cumulative impacts seems to get lost in the process. And I'm looking at a oft-promised but yet to appear museum construction that will take place. We are addressing the burdens of a 12-story hotel. We have a map that says that 350 acres will be developed as commercial. What I see is a growing complexity on a global spectrum and no discussion of how to manage this. We're focused on one parcel with enormous implications, and we're not going further to look at this. I too echo Mr. Porter's sentiments. Housing can be dealt with, but the dialogue has been lacking in a global understanding of the impacts and a real discussion of its role and impact on the community plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Richard?
Morning, I'm Richard Crutchfield. I just want to point out it took 5 years and an act of Congress for us to get to this point. And I think we should treat this dialogue very carefully. At some point we're going to have to start closing some of the open items right now before us, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and that concludes public comment. We'll go ahead and move on to our agenda item number 1, which is the adoption of our September 8th, 2016 action minutes. Should be an attachment. Do we have any questions or comments or changes from any of the ad hoc members about the minutes?
No questions.
Okay, no comments. Supervisor Adam? No. Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and adopt the action minutes of that meeting by consensus. Sound good?
Yes.
Head nods? All right, very good. All right, we'll move on to discussion item number 2, which is the latest information that we have from the Santa Ynez Band. It's an attachment here. It's a letter that was dated October 12th with draft terms and conditions responses. So what we thought would be, very helpful would be Chairman Khan for you and Mr. Lopez to maybe kind of go through the letter. I don't know if Mr. Cohen wants to make comments and just kind of walk us through the letter. You know, there are some definite changes in it, some other things that are kind of the same, so we just want to give you the opportunity to kind of walk through it and talk us through.
Certainly. I think last time I know there was some challenges with looking at the matrix, and some things were a little ambiguous. So we thought we'd do the best that we could to make very clear some of our positions. And Sam, do we want to go over through the PowerPoint, or you want to go through the letter? Okay. Okay. Why don't I have you outline it real quick? We'll have Sam do an abbreviated version.
Been chosen for speed of presentation. This is the proposal that has been up on the county website for a number of days under correspondence. It starts with sovereign immunity. We believe that issue is resolved. It has been incorporated in the sheriff's agreement and approved by both the Board of Supervisors and the General Counsel of the tribe. The next issue is Camp 4, and kind of just went away. But Camp 4, we ask that the county support H.R. 1157 and any future bill. We've also requested that the county withdraw its appeal to the Camp 4 notice of decision dated December 24th, 2014. The next major section is a gaming limitation. The tribe requests that the property be controlled by federal law, tribal law, and H.R. 1157 as adopted, which provides for a restriction on any type of gaming in Section 2, little d. We're on to fee in lieu of property taxes. We're okay with the county's formula, which is 38% of 1% based on an initial assessment of the property. The position of the tribe is currently that the Camp 4 property is owned by the United States and the tribe, and therefore is non-assessable, but the 38% of 1% should be assessed on the structures for individual housing. The county can use these funds for any other purpose, and all other undistributed lands and tribal buildings will not be assessed. And then there should be a procedure for assessment, appeals, and reassessments, much like the existing county process, but possibly appealable to a neutral third-party appraiser. There's a term. The tribe is okay with the existing term of the existing compact and any future compacts. The only exception or reopener is on the next page. The existing tribal state gaming compact has in section 4.6 an exclusivity clause that provides that if gaming exclusivity is lost in the state of California, the tribe may cancel its Class 3 gaming compact or continue under the compact with a renegotiated fee structure. So we've made this parallel for the county's agreement with a termination if the compact is termination and a proportionate decrease in any fee in lieu if the state has a proportionate decrease. The next major section is building codes and environmental impacts. The tribe is governed by federal law and the tribal state compact. For building codes, we have agreed to be covered by the existing building code section of the tribal state compact, which will need some revision. For fire codes, the tribe is governed by the existing fire code sections of the tribal state compact, which will also need some existing revision. The tribe is willing to look at and implement in good faith relevant provisions of the San Ynez Valley Community Plan, and the tribe the fee to trust process and the tribe will follow the terms of the current valid recorded easements. Water and sewer. The tribe is governed by federal law and federal agencies, EPA and ACOE. The tribe has met with the county to discuss groundwater sustainability agency formation and the implementation of the Groundwater Act. The tribe has also met with the Water Conservation District, Irrigation District Number 1, and we've also met with the Special Services District as well, where tribe is committed to using its recycled wastewater for fire and other community emergency situations. The sewer analysis, the tribe operates its own wastewater treatment plant. It has tertiary treatment, which means it brings it up to Title 22 standards. The tribe has independently gotten a permit from the Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board to take that recycled water and use it off the reservation for landscape and other irrigation purposes, and it's currently being used that way in all the tribal land, non-tribal trust lands east of the casino, including the gas station. The water analysis, we spent a lot of time in the environmental assessment, balancing water use. There's provision. We remove 50 acres of irrigated grapes. Each acre of grapes uses 1 acre-feet of water. And we also combine that with recycled tertiary treated water, and we balance the water use to no net increase in water demands under Alternative B, which is the 1 acre parcels. It can go a little further. Yeah, perfect. Preservation of open space. Highway 154 is designated as a scenic highway, so the tribe proposes a 20-foot buffer zone for no construction of any buildings on the eastern border of 154 as it abuts Camp 4. Offsets. This is a very confused section because we had offsets in the original sheriff's agreement because we had special distribution funding that was for the sheriff as well. So we had offsets in that original agreement. The tribe was originally agreeable to no offsets for the special distribution funds. But now, since that time, the tribe has a number of agreements with both the sheriff for providing of services throughout the valley and fire. It totals about $2 million, and the tribe is proposing a 50-cent on the dollar offset to pay offset to the payments in lieu of taxes in this agreement for those funds the tribe currently provides. I think I jumped over, no, I didn't jump over preservation open space. The last, sales and transient occupancy taxes, or bed taxes as it's recalled. The tribe is agreeable to levy both sales and TOT taxes in equivalent amounts. Tribe has an existing ordinance, but the tribe promises to use only those amounts collected for on-reservation capital improvements and for grants to local governments. We spent a lot of time last time talking about the use of the tribal hall facility. So it is one of the largest sections of this proposal, but really the tribe proposes not to have the same restrictions on the existing tribal hall on the existing reservation in place for the new tribal hall on Camp 4. The Williamson Act, the tribe has asked for the cancellation on parcels 2 and 4 and a waiver of penalty fees. After that, there's 2 pages just retyping. I know it's retyping because I personally retyped it. Retypings of building code sections from the Tribal State Compact. And then the final, at the end of that page, are the fire protection sections from the existing Tribal State Compact as well. Chairwoman, Chairman Khan.
So, Sam, thank you very much. Of course, in the building code sections that were extracted from the compact, that will be a section where I was hoping that Sam and County Council may have an opportunity to work together to tailor that language to similar to what you guys did with the sovereign immunity language, but tailor that to this specific situation. So obviously there's gaming facility language in here that we just pulled right out of the compact, so we can fix that so it fits Camp 4. We really feel like there's a number of compromises in here. We worked together as a committee and also got some input from various tribal members, and these terms are certainly something that we've given a lot of thought to, and I know we've also here at this level have had a lot of discussion publicly as well. we're doing the best that we can to compromise and find a nice balance. So.
Well, I have to say, I really appreciate the amount of movement that you guys made here. This is the beginning of, I think, something we can really work with. That said, I have a lot of ideas, and personally, we weren't able to actually come up with an alternative language. We wanted to get some more information, and we have some questions for you about that'll help us to create another draft for next time. And we also want to listen to the public and get their input on what you've said here. But just in short, I think you're moving on the fees. The 38% and 1% is big, and I appreciate that. The willingness to open this thing beyond the length of the compact is big, and I appreciate that. Some of the building code stuff, and the gaming, that's a tough pill for us to swallow. So, I would expect when we come back to get some pushback on that. The building code stuff, I think I might have a workaround, but I'm not sure my partner is going to agree to it, so I'm not going to go into that specifically at this time. Can we go to the water and sewer section? And can you add on a little bit more of what you mean by the second sentence? As for groundwater, the tribe will try to participate as a member. What's
I think really that's a good faith effort is what our intention in that language was. So.
okay? Well, when we finally make a deal, we're going to have to know, whether you're in or out on that. I don't think we can leave words like try or promote or assist, in a final agreement. I mean, they're good, and those are all in that same paragraph there. It's just tough to know what that means. And I think one of the things that we have to have with a good agreement is what everybody's rights and responsibilities are, and what exactly everybody's agreeing to do, and the actions they're willing to perform. And if you're not willing to perform them, or if we're not, we're going to have to push back. You're going to have to push back against us. We get that, and that's why these things don't just jump off the paper, and everybody doesn't just hold hands and sing Kumbaya and you're done. But I can't say enough how much I appreciate what you've done here. I think this is a really great step forward. Going down a little further into that consideration of offsets, that's another tough one. And the other thing that we've said a number of times is on that subject is, the money that you pay for the services that you get at this time at the casino and at the reservation, the existing reservation, those are fees that can't be applied to Camp 4 or any other property. So at least that's our position at this time. And of course the Williamson Act at the end, and at the very beginning, where we're talking about supporting 1157 or something like it, are all subject to getting the other parts of the deal together. We've already we've made a statement, I think, on the Williamson Act, and if the deal's right, and also with respect to the 1157 or something like it, if the deal's right, you know, we're probably okay with it, and if not, then, you know, it's going to be tough. So, you want to take it?
Sure. So, you know, Chairman Khan and I had a very brief, very cordial conversation the other night where nothing substantive was discussed, but where he reiterated the tribe's willingness to make progress and to be committed to this process. And I also thanked him for the tone of this letter and the significant movement in some of these areas that Supervisor Adam has talked about. And so, but I do have some questions, and a lot of them are along the line of what Supervisor Adam talked about. And again, you know, we are appreciative of the collaborative process of the 38% of 1%. But I had a question now about the number, because we've been working off of the 143 housing unit number, which was in the environmental assessment. But now this is new language that talks about tribal members alive when Camp 4 was acquired in 2010 and their descendants, and to be used by them for housing. So I'm just wondering if you could respond to, is that the same as 143? And I'm just wondering why you didn't just say 143 if it's the same or if it's a different number.
So really, you know, since we have this virtual allotment plan. So of the home, even though the land is not in trust, the homes have not been developed. You know, we have this record on record that the members, when we voted for that land to be designated for housing, have an allotment opportunity. Now, some of those members have passed since, and so we want to make sure that there's language that doesn't limit their next of kin or descendants to be able to take advantage of that as well. So that 143 number is the same. It's just that some of those are going to be their descendants living in the homes since they're passed.
Okay, fine. Well, I mean, I think, you know, for purposes of the discussion for the county, we're just concerned about the overall number. Obviously, it would be up to the tribe to decide how you would delegate those land, you know, allotments, and, you know, what is the succession plan for, you know, how those get transferred. Again, the term, very, very appreciative of that. I did want to go to the language about implement in good faith relevant portions of the San Ynez Community Plan. And that was actually something we talked about at our last meeting, because certainly very interested in knowing what parts of the plan, because it is a very large plan, you were interested in implementing as a part of this. And I think that was one of the things we asked you to come back with, if you had some more specific ideas as to what you were thinking about there. So it's under building codes and environmental impacts, and the plan doesn't really speak to building codes, but it does, of course, talk about you know, environmental impacts and land use impacts. So I didn't know whether either one of you or the tribe had a discussion about what you were kind of thinking about there.
We actually haven't had a deeper discussion on actual points within that. I think just generally that you know, of course we're open to a dialogue to what your thoughts are, but generally we've used a number of other, whether it's county or state or federal codes, and have adopted them within the tribal reservation. I don't know which one of those work, and it is a large, very expansive plan, but we're open to recommendations.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, for example, I know that this is probably not a major issue, but it's important to a lot of people in the community, is the issue of trails. on, you know, public trails and interconnecting the trails. But anyway, you know, perhaps the next time, you know, I and my staff will take a look at the plan and maybe pull some things out for discussion, and perhaps you can do the same. On the water and the sewer, you know, do very much appreciate a good faith effort. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is, you know, coming to a county near and dear to us, and particularly in the San Ynez Valley, you know, there's 3 sub-basins, and Camp 4 is definitely going to be in that eastern sub-basin, and I know that there are discussions going on already with Tom Farum of County Flood Control and Bruce Wales of the parent district. So, and they have told me that you are amenable to being a part of those discussions, so I would certainly strongly encourage that, because it's going to affect everybody in the valley one way or another, and so we really want to have your voices there. And so then going on the preservation of open space, when we had talked about a view corridor, a view shed from Highway 154, now you have some specific language that talks about the first 20 feet east of 154 as a setback for no construction of any buildings. I'm just wondering how you came up with that number. Is there any?
You know what, it was just a number we plugged in there. It's something that is up for discussion.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's pretty narrow for a view shed.
Absolutely.
Generally, when the county is talking about setbacks to anything, we're talking at least 50 to 100 feet. So,
And we were waiting for that feedback.
okay, well, so I think that's something that, you know, I think it's important, excuse me, for us to talk about some more, because that is so very scenic there, as you know, and we would really be looking to protect that as much as possible. On the offsets, I thought it was kind of interesting, because we've kind of gone back and forth on the offsets. So you're not calling them offsets, you're calling them a credit, which is kind
We
of
can
an
call
offset.
them whatever you want.
Yeah, that's
but
right. And again, you know, my concern on all of this from the very beginning is that the existing contracts that are in place for fire and sheriff were deliberately analyzed from the county's perspective and written to mitigate the impacts from the existing reservation and casino operation. And so, you know, when you start utilizing that to help mitigate new impacts from other property, then it not only dilutes the mitigation, but it starts to kind of mix and match things that are totally separate. So I think, you know, also there's a financial consideration, because as you said, you know, for the current fire and sheriff, that's about $2 million now, and a half credit for that would be $1 million. So then we'd have to be looking at whatever the 38% from 1%, and how is that assessed, and what would that value be, to know what minusing $1 million off of that, you know, would actually leave the county. I think the sales and TOT were kind of where we were before. But the Williamson Act, I do have a question, because I think that when in our first meetings, you know, the tribe was asking for the cancellation of the Williamson Act, at least on those 2 parcels, and the waiver of the penalty fees. And then last time that seemed to be dropped altogether, and you weren't necessarily interested in the Williamson Act, and now it's kind of back. Was that just kind of a lapse the last time, or has your thinking changed on the need to cancel the Williamson Act early?
You know, I don't know that we specifically gave up that conversation. I don't know that we just didn't touch on it the last time. Yeah.
Okay, so that's being consistent then. All right, and you know, and I appreciate the building code and the fire code sections, but I think that you know, obviously, if you are following the state codes and all of that, that's all we would be able to enforce anyway. So, and in working with fire and sheriff on the other agreements, I think you've worked out a lot of different issues, and certainly know what the concerns of our first responders are when it comes to how the buildings are constructed. So those are just some of the notes that I had here. Supervisor Adam, did you have anything you wanted to add before we go to public comment?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, why don't we go ahead and go to public comment on this item? I just have 2 speaker slips right now. I see somebody else coming up. Jim Marino?
Where's the timer? I tend to go beyond all the time.
Right up on the screen, sir.
Good morning, members of the Ad Hoc Committee, members of the tribe. Let me just say right off the bat, the Supreme Court decided in 2005 that Indian tribes can own land just like anyone else, any corporations, and of course they abide or are required to abide by all the same rules. In 2008, Assistant Secretary Artman indicated to all the regional directors that Indian tribes can develop land just like anybody else, and it doesn't need to be in trust for that purpose. And he goes on to say in that memo, the only time that a tribe needs to bring land into trust is if they intend to engage in gaming activity on that land. Briefly, and I only have a few minutes, there's things in this proposal from the tribe I just don't understand. I think some of the ad hoc committee members are the same, feel the same. Why don't they just state in the contract, we won't engage in any gaming on that land? Why cite the LaMalfa bill and expect you to put that into the compact as if that was going to be in concrete? If you look at the example that occurred in San Pablo with Congressman Miller, it's a real easy matter once it's in trust to change things around, change the rules, take away the restriction against gaming, etc. So just put it into this agreement. You don't need to rely on the LaMalfa bill. I don't understand why there would be no property taxes paid if the gaming stops. This is 1,400 acres. It's over a mile or 2 from the casino. So if gaming stops, so what? Are they going to stop using that land? Well, why shouldn't they pay taxes for all the services they intend to take from the county as a result of having houses and other facilities on that property? 20-foot setback, that was mentioned. That doesn't help much when you got a 12-story hotel. You can see that for 150, 200, 300, 400 feet for that matter. So if there's no restrictions on height, which is important in zoning practice, if you're trying to preserve the aesthetics, you limit the height like San Ynez, like the town. We're trying to preserve that image, 1- and 2-story buildings. So there should be a height limitation. That's most important. They talk at one point about the alcohol policy. We know about the alcohol policy. Started off at the casino hotel, none, never happened. Then it was, oh, just the fine dining restaurant. Then after that, it was, well, it's all the other restaurants in the meeting room, but only when they have banquets. And most recently, of course, it's everywhere. So now they have an alcohol license to serve alcohol everywhere. So why would you rely on a limitation for that land about alcohol use? Why, I guess Chairman Kant was trying to explain why they had any provisions from the gaming compact in this agreement. If there's no gaming, you've got to have an entirely different set of proposals for use if it doesn't relate to gaming.
Thank you, Mr. Marino. Your time is up.
My time's up.
Please. Andy Culbertson, to be followed by C.J. Jackson.
Before my time begins, I have a letter to distribute to the committee. Good morning. I'm Andy Culbertson, and I first want to commend Chairman Khan and Committee Member Gomez and the Chumash Business Committee for its acquiescence to many of the county's interests. I'm not going to belabor the parts I disagree with because my comments are on file. I want to raise an issue that I think is much more important. It is no secret that Wells Fargo Bank is the major lender here, and the question that I raise is whether they should be a party to this agreement or should subordinate to it. While there's a waiver of sovereign immunity that has been agreed to by the band and by the county, the tribe can only waive the rights it still possesses. I do not know what the terms of the loan extensions are to the band, and whether Wells Fargo Bank could step in and do something different than the band agrees to. Let me tell you why this is really a big concern. Wells Fargo has issued several press releases over the years indicating that their significant motivation in lending to tribes is the ability for the land to be taken into trust and to be developed through a lease agreement with Wells Fargo for revenue to Wells Fargo, which is free of regulation and free of tax. They've been open and notorious about this, and I think we all know, based on current events, that Wells Fargo has some unorthodox, if you can put it that way, ways of dealing with increasing their profits. So I'm suggesting that the county carefully consider the potential for not the band. They may keep their promises, but can they promise something that Wells Fargo might be able to take over on a default on the loan through a recourse agreement with the band? And that, because Wells Fargo would not be a party and would not have subordinated to this agreement, Wells Fargo may be able to take steps that, in spite of the band's good faith, would have nothing to do with this agreement or any agreements that the band has made. Here's another reason why that's important. Recently, I think just this week, the Bureau of Indian Affairs has published a notice in the Federal Register that they're no longer going to look at the leases of trust land for the Chemehuevi tribe of California. So we don't even have BIA potentially looking at these lease agreements. And I think it's very important to the county. I think this can be done confidentially. I'm not proposing in any way that the band's agreement with Wells Fargo be made public. I think an in-camera review between the counsel for the band and county counsel would be sufficient for me to determine whether or not there's any way for Wells Fargo Bank, the gorilla in the room, to take over this agreement and do something different than everybody is agreeing to in good faith. And I think that the failure to join them as an indispensable party is something the county should very heavily consider. Thank you.
Thank you. C.J. Jackson.
Thank you. I did not get to say in my opening remarks that I too see movement in the letter you've written. I see tone, and that will have a bearing on what goes forward. Because I see what's going to happen at some point. You're going to have an agreement that you may prepare. The county's going to have an agreement that they prepare. And at some point, if this whole process goes forward, you will take that agreement back to your voting members, and the county will take it back to the board. And when it takes it back to the board, the community will have its opportunity in a public hearing to weigh in and issue its concerns and address it. So I'm very pleased with the tone and the direction. I'm concerned because there are elements I don't understand. We've already discussed at a certain point the issues within the community plan that you intend to follow. A lot of impact is going to go and hinge on the ability of the community to get their hands around a central feature that I apologize, been harping on. The community plan presumes an agricultural and rural-driven ethos and character that guides the community. If it is going to support, when it goes to its elected officials, something that either contradicts that or is given lip service to, they're going to want to understand that element. And the communication from the tribe is going to be critical to that fact. Therefore, when we talk about issues like the Williamson Act, we talk about commercially zoned property on 350 acres of the triangle. The message that is coming across to the community, in my opinion, and from my perspective, is of an enhanced commercial and expansive business nature to the future of our community plan, which is an inherent contradiction. So I'm concerned about that. The other element is you talk about only one reopener. I'm confused or concerned. If the tribe builds 143 houses and only the tribal hall and nothing else, then all of this program makes sense. But what happens if after property were to go into trust that the tribe changes to a more expansive and again consistent with this business thrust, commercially zoned proposition? I would hope that please remember the message, because they're going to have to sell it. And this community is highly vested in its community plan and in that character that it provides. As a former banker, I agree with Ms. Culbertson. There is that hanging over the head of the community, so please, please attack that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Doug Herthel, and I think this is my last speaker slip I have.
Morning, supervisors and tribe. After listening to Andy Culbertson's talk, I think it's important that we educate ourselves about basically our partner, or the county's partner in this whole endeavor. And you don't have to pick up the paper very often to see articles on our new partner. And the whole reason this is all happening is because of this partner. This partner is supplying basically 100% of the money behind this whole project. And its success lends massive success to the financial upswing in this particular bank. So I'd like to leave these off with you. I think the county needs to really, really, really study the new partner and why we're doing this. So I'll leave these with you.
All right, that concludes public comment on agenda item number 2. Before we leave this item and move on, I want to give the members of the ad hoc committee another opportunity to make any comments, additional questions, information to bring back the next time. Chairman Kahn?
Just a comment when it comes to land use and any type of codes to protect neighbors from neighbors. The tribe is also a government, and we have been looking at Camp 4 for a while now, looking at opportunities to be a good neighbor, to be consistent, and so not only are we working on this agreement, but the tribe also will have a number of restrictions on the property under tribal law. So I really don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. That we also have that in mind. So, but thank you, and we look forward to some of your comments and some of these terms. And really, we've been doing this for a long time, and we want to make sure that there's not a term or two in here that are going to stop this agreement from going to the next level. And we really, we need to know that today rather than next year. And I think you guys probably feel the same. These meetings are informative, and we're able to have the tough dialogue, but we need to make sure we see light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez, comments?
So we thank you for this opportunity. I think this was a great meeting. I think the last several meetings have not been kind of stagnant a little bit. I think this letter that we presented today was actually something that we could work on together. Like Supervisor Adams, you have some comments later on. We look forward to seeing them and retract on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, any comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Adam?
I think we got to wrap our mind around what our options are as a negotiating team before we go put any more detail out there. but I think this is really something we can build on. So I'm really happy that it came out this way, and at this time, it's great. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3, which is try to set meeting dates for both November and December. Supervisor Adam and I and our staff have put a couple of dates out there that we know work for us. But of course, need to make sure that those would work for you, or if you have alternative dates.
And
You guys
not-
don't want to meet on Thanksgiving, do you?
No.
So the 17th, we do have a conflict, November 17th.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was just going to make a note of the fact that our schedules over the next, 2 months are really tight. And are those, Terry, about the only dates we could actually put it together on?
Yes, and we did offer a number of dates last time that didn't work as well for all, and this was about as best we could find on the supervisor's calendars, so.
So December 8th does work.
Okay.
So
Okay, well,
So the
let's-
17th won't, so we're just down to December 8th?
December 8th works.
Okay.
All right, so are we going to try to find a date in November, or is it just too complicated with the Thanksgiving holiday?
We try if we want to do that now.
All right, well, let's definitely set Thursday, December 8th, if that works for you. And so then either we continue to try to find a date in November over the next couple of weeks, or we would just default to only the December meeting?
That works.
Okay. All right, so we will continue to see if we can find a date in November, although because of the holiday, it is difficult, but definitely December 8th we will set. Okay, and then, so we'll just go ahead and go on then to item number 4. I think, Supervisor Adam and I realize that we need to come back now with a more detailed response to what you have now put on the table, so to speak, and we'll need some time to do that. I think, we still have asked for some clarification on some things through this meeting that we are hoping the tribe will come back with. And, there may be some other information that gets identified as we go along, but I think we've provided some fairly detailed comments here between all of us today. So, any other comments? It's kind of a catch-all here for item number 4. Anything other specific you want to ask of the county, other than just a more detailed response to your letter?
Yeah, I think a detailed response to the letter would be great. And then, as I mentioned earlier, just I think it would be good to look at terms that are just absolutely not acceptable from your perspective, because I don't. We've been doing this for quite some time now, and I want to make sure that we're very clear on how we can get to this next level. And I mean, I don't know that I guess one specifically in mind is, will you guys support a fee to trust or legislation if we get all of these other terms aligned? And that's really the overriding factor for us within this agreement. So I think that would be one that we would want to shore up. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. I've had 2 requests to speak now on this item, which I will honor, Andy Culbertson and then C.J. Jackson, and then we'll close.
Members, Andy Culbertson, just something quick. We've had a lot of discussions about offsets, credits, things like that. I think maybe a working example would be a good idea. There are many jurisdictions between the counties and cities that work out deals. Maybe in the county, if it has a fire and the city has the nearest fire truck, the city's fire truck goes over, and then there's a mutual aid agreement between the county and the city about who pays for what. Recently, there was a fire on the reservation. I'm sure there were county and CAL FIRE resources out there. How is that compensated? Now, it may be compensated by the existing fire department agreement with the band. However, the same thing can be done for Camp 4. What we have to understand is that if the band takes the position that we have our own police force and our own fire force and will take care of everything, and it turns out that the challenge exceeds their ability to respond and the county has to come in, there should be some sharing of cost of that. That's all I'm saying, is that I think if you could make this simpler by showing that there can be an agreement rather than talking about these vague concepts, and say, if we need your help, if the band says, if we need your help and you have to come in, we'll pay the cost of that. And the band says back to you, if you need the band's help for fire, for police, if we go in there and help you, you pay us back. And that's all it has to be. It's just that it's a net zero out of pocket to both sides. And that's to me, just putting an example like that and saying it in plain English is just all you need to do. As to the codes are important because they can create situations where there would be more emergencies. I think if you want to have the band, if the county wants the band to accept the county codes, I agree with Chairman Kahn, they're their own government. I think I, as a taxpayer, would like to know before we spend more time on this, what shortcomings you believe their codes have that the county's codes could infill, and if there is a problem with that, then ask the band if they would be amenable to amending their code. That's as simple as it can be. That's all I have. I suggest that we talk more in those kind of specifics at the next meeting when we talk about these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Culbertson. C.J. Jackson, we are our final speaker today.
What time is it? Here's the experience I'm having, Chairman Kahn. We're done. That has not been the experience up until this point. I see a great deal of work being done in two silos. I see this happening, legal parties get together, and the impetus to this was the public involvement. And again, if I come back to the notion that at some point the public will weigh in to its elected officials on the efficacy of this agreement, it should be visible enough to the community to get their hands around it, to be able to decide if they're going to support the recommendation of this committee to the greater board going forward. One part seems, it may be obvious to you, but it isn't to anybody who picks up a paper or looks at this. What are we talking about? 2 parcels going into trust as of a subset of Camp 4? Are we talking about all of Camp 4? There are 869 acres in the FEDA trust application that talk about land banking. What happens to that? Where does that go? How do we deal with it? One other element, if you want to pave the way for this agreement in the future, only having these meetings at 9 o'clock in the morning where someone has to leave work and come over here, it's going to be hard to build a consensus around this joint vision if nobody can get close enough to see it and if nobody can hear what the component elements are. So I would like you to think about, okay, you craft it, now how are you going to sell it? How are you going to make it go forward? And I actually think there are process elements that are going to take this thing out. So I would like to know if you could also put on the agenda an understanding of structurally what are the next steps. God, if you do come to an agreement, then what? We talk about integrating 1157, and then we talk about endorsing 1157. 1157, if not acted upon, will come to an end on December 31st and either have to be re-upped or not. And if 1157 were to happen tomorrow, does that moot this meeting. I would like to understand if 1157 doesn't go forward and has to be redone. Structurally, I think for a community to get behind and support its elected officials, it's going to need an explicit understanding that they can see, that they can do to support their elected officials. And I think you're part of that discussion. So I'd like you to think about that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. You know, just to respond to some of that, I think that, you know, we're all always aware of the difficulty of the general public coming to any kind of a meeting during the day, which is why everything that we've done, every document that has been out there is up on the website at the county, so that people can watch these meetings if they can't be here, and follow along in all the ways, and as if you were in the room, and make comments. Certainly can't make comments in real time like those of you that can make the meeting, but you know, whatever correspondence we receive goes up on the website as well. And along that same line, you know, we've had a matrix we've been working on with the various general terms that the ad hoc committee agreed on at the very beginning. And so that's all up on the website. So if people want to know what was kind of the last position of the tribe, or what was the kind of the last position of the county in all of these different term areas, it's all up there. And so I think, you know, this latest letter from the tribe, where they have stayed consistent on some of those terms and changed in some of those terms, is something that now everybody has, and they can look at that on the matrix and see, you know, how that has changed or how that has stayed the same, and the same for the county. So, and again, just in the discussion we just had about our next meeting, we will continue to try to find a meeting date in November, and if that is decided, or if it's not decided, whatever it is, that information will also be put up on the website, so everybody will know. So, you know, please spread that word. That was done very deliberately from the very beginning, so everybody could follow along with this process as much as they wanted to. So with that, any other final comments before we adjourn this meeting?
No more comments, just thank you to the general public, and thank you, supervisors.
Yeah,
Staff.
and yes, we'll echo those thanks to the members of the public who could come and decided to speak, and also again our sincere thanks to the tribe for providing the letter, for the tone, and you know, some very significant movement on some issues that are very important to the county. So thank you for that, and we'll let you know if we're meeting in November, but we're definitely meeting on Thursday, December 8th. Thank you all again.